Is Ami on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Now you will allow the quality in that since I'm Nick Malcolm Pona. Giselle, Pina, the Stalk of Vesmat, Musok, you Halios Harka, Pina, Pashtus. Oh, sorry, Hashpos, Oyer Canal, Velosh Nistalik Nitalam Lagamra, Ella, Nimshal Stalkos Vehelam Batsmei, Hidesh Kola Emig Varichus, Kishain Derech Kitzer Canal, like we said in chapter 12. That this is the Nimshal on the Marshal of chapter 12. The Imke and Lafize, like it said over there, Gam Acher Kol Hishtalshelut, Dabya, Oime, Chaime B'Mokampon, Zera Pinas Helam Era Atzmus, Maki V'Soyev L'Kol Hishtalshelut Kav, the same like what it said that in the teacher, the whole pilpul of the Gemara is Soyev on the Mishnah.
Right.
Gemara,
and you were saying about the Sovev and the...
Yeah, the Sovev doesn't mean that it's Sovev on the whole outside of the whole world, but it's Mamish Sovev on each particular thing. Mamish, that doesn't mean that it's Sovev. It means it's Mamish there, not only that it's Mamish there. Sovev doesn't mean that it's outside of it. It's really inside of it. The same like the by the teacher, the knowledge of the Gemara, it doesn't mean it's outside of his knowledge of the Mishnah. It's mamish inside of it, actually. But it's called soiviv because it's in a way that it's muvdal.
So the knowledge of that he has
the Gemara is hidden.
Soiviv, the Mishnah, and that it includes the Mishnah in it.
Inside of it.
Parcel of it.
Yeah, but it's really inside of it. It's not, the soiviv doesn't mean it's outside of it. It permeates the whole thing. It doesn't mean that it's mamish outside of it. The soiviv actually permeates the thing just as much as the or pnimi does.
Right.
As the mamala. The only difference is the mamala is felt in the thing, and the soiviv is totally unfelt.
Right.
The kav ukmo shaya or asma is koydem at tzimtzum mala kol achal areka and makam ponazeh, and the same really. Dora Atmos is still really filling up the whole thing. The same like by the teacher. It's not that it's actually his knowledge really disappeared in any way. His knowledge still fills up the whole brain, and the whole smaller knowledge is still filled up just exactly the same way. And that's what, the Rebbe said, the Altachal Shem Kachuchi. It doesn't mean that there's actually a hole in the light.
Right.
כמו שנאמר בעץ חיים, כך גם אחר הצמצום, הרי ישנו לאור עצמיס כמו שהוא בבחינת אין סוף ממש. It's still there exactly the same way. רק שלא נגלה למטה לגבי שפע המקבלים. Except that as far as the מקבלים, it's just like when the teacher is telling them the Mishnah, they only see the chitzonius of the Mishnah. They don't get the whole soivev of the Gemara on it, and yet it really is there. Because the way they get the Mishnah, so like even, let's say, not a Mishnah, even like past the Mishnah, there's like when you have Mamish Halachas Tzukas,
Right.
Halachas Tzukas is like a Shulchan Aruch, and not even just like a Shulchan Aruch, like a Kitzer Shulchan Aruch.
Right.
That in a Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, even though you don't see the whole pilpul, but you're getting mamish, the actual psak halacha exactly according to the whole Gemara with all the arguments. Every single argument is there in the final halacha that you get there. So it's really not gone at all. It's just that it's not seen to the makabel. Ava legabi atzmusay and shina b'zeklav. So as far as the makabel, really it's not gone, but it's just not seen to him. As far as the mashpia, it's totally no shinui. Ukmo mashla yadua. Wait a minute. וכמו משהו ידוע, כל האריכוס להשיב לשאלה מיד גם
Hayoidea kol arichas.
Huh?
It's Hayoidea kol arichas.
Oh, here it says הידוע. כמו משהו ידע כל האריכוס להשיב לשאלה מיד גם בשעה ששיינו תלמידו בקיצור כולו. ומה שנאמר ישס חשך סיטרי, what it said, he surrounds himself with darkness, that he hides himself with he puts darkness around himself to hide himself. In other words, really, if you look at the actual Seder, like we said here, really the light preceded the darkness. The darkness is not first, the light is first, really.
Right.
But what they say is kibriyos shel olam. Then bereisha chashucha hainu agabi lamata, as far as to the downstairs. Shenimshach rak b'mchinas harshimu. Shenimshach achar hahelam. For that, then it starts with the darkness. But as far as the real thing, it really started with the light. Same thing with a teacher. Like by the student, it starts with a big sense of confusion.
Right.
But by the teacher it doesn't. The teacher starts off with knowing the whole thing. And then he makes a hester and he just has to tell him tiny little things. נמשך בפני השמש, נמשך אחר אל כנ"ל, וזהו את הקודש ושמך קודש, אור עצמוס, מובדל, ואתה הוא קודם, you are before.
Or עצמי קדוש ומובדל.
Huh?
Over here it says, or עצמי קדוש ומובדל.
Okay, good. That makes more sense like that. Or עצמוס קודש ומובדל, V'atahu kaidem chulu, you're before the world, and you're after the world, exactly the same. There's really no difference. Mishun, the Masha Megala Amukis, Mini Choshech, V'helem, Zeh Acharkach Be'eres HaKav, Hu Davka Ma'isa Eira Atzma Shalifnat Symptom. This thing that he reveals, the Amukus from the Choshech, this is really from the original Asmas before that symptom, even though, and this is like the Indian with the Mishnah and Gemara, that after there was a darkness and they lost the original Gemara, like certain things they didn't lose, but certain things they lost, and they were able to reconstitute it out of the Mishnah. But really, it comes from the original light from before that Rebbe put into the Mishnah.
Right.
That when he put it into the Mishnah, he put the whole light in there, just that it was in a way that it was metzumtzum.
1 second, let me flip the tape. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, this thing of the revelation of light later is really from the original Oratzins reported symptoms. Zeu Ata Hu. Ata is Nikla and Hu is Nistar. Ata means the light after the symptom is Hu, the light before the symptom. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Bikadua. V'amnam lo nikra ora atzma shemakiv hishtalshelut shemakam panoi chulu kmo pchinas makif lepnimi makif haklali the kav. And that's what you said before. It's like you said, why do you say mocker a mocker? Not a mocker.
Right.
It's not even a mocker. It's really not even called a makif at all to a pnimi. Makif haklali the kav. Means the machshava kduma is a makif klali to the pnimi. Shemakif la b'yabishove. And that thing of the Machshava Kduma is really makif, b'shabbos, like what we said a few minutes ago. That it's makif in each place. But really, this is not really even a makif.
Right.
Ki adayin eino begeder besug prinas or hashpo klal. It really has nothing to do with it. It's not really a makif. A makif means it's makif on it. This really has nothing to do with it. Gam lo liot b'chinat makif. It's not really in a way of a pnimin. It's not really in a way of a makif. Rak or atmis shehu b'chinas hisgalusuk mo shehu ba'atmos. And it's still the same. It really didn't change, really. B'lezeh anu oimrim hu kayam b'shmo kayam v'ken baruch hu baruch shmo kahai gavna. It's exactly the same like before. Rak b'chinas eishis the glif b'tiri la. And this is, now it's a hint to what's going on in Ayin Beis. From the original Atzmas Ha'or, nothing went through. You know, there was Mas'ud and Yoel had this.
Yeah.
They had this big argument that was going on for months. You know, that whether the light goes through or doesn't go through. So I told them, you're talking about two different things.
Right.
The Mittler Rebbe says it doesn't go through, and the Rebbe Rashab said it does go through. Because he's talking about a different inyan. As far as the Or Atzmos, it has absolutely nothing to do with the world, and none of it goes through.
Right.
It's only from the Glif Glifu, and even that, it's not from the actual Pneumius of the Glif Glifu, but only from the Oisius of the Glif Glifu.
Right.
Which is the inyan of the, and not even that, it's really from the Pashtus of those Oisius, which is called the Oira Mitpashet. And even from that, what really went through doesn't mamish mean it actually went through.
Right.
It means like it went through, like over here, through these letters, the Seichel of the Rebbe is going through to us. But really, the Seichel of the Rebbe, as far as the Etzem Seichel of the Rebbe, it has nothing to do with us at all. It's on a totally different level that is mamish, totally incomprehensible to us. And even this little bit that the Rebbe made a Glif Glifu in order to give to us this book, he Glif Glifu this book inside of himself before it came out. That's understood. That there had to be a Glif Glifu on the inside, otherwise where did this book come from?
Right.
Even that, it doesn't mean that the actual something from that went into this book. In this book, there's nothing there. This book is a piece of paper with ink. That's all it is. There's nothing but that. That's all it is. Mamish, there's nothing, there's not one iota from the Mittler Rebbe in it. And yet, is a Reshimu there, because the order of the letters is the same like the order of the letters in the first Glif Glifu. And that's why we can reconstitute a He'ara from He'ara, then that's what goes through, so actually it does go through. It went through what the Rebbe thought for us to get, that's what came to us. Like what we're learning now. We say, what do you mean there's no light coming through? There's a light coming to us. But it's not that the actual light that the Rebbe thought is actually coming to us.
Right.
You know, and that's the whole inyan of the Mashpia and the Makabel. That even in terms of his Pashtus, what he was mitpashet the light, even that, it didn't really come through over here. It's just hidden inside of this as a Reshimu, and then it's reconstituted as a new He'ara. So, it's only from the Glif Utiri law, like the Rebbe, first of all, had to be Mishayar himself. What can these idiots understand? What am I gonna... I have to write a book, so he had to make a shir. What can these idiots understand? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There had to be a shir. He said, I'm not going to be able to teach them like I know it. So they had to make a shir. In order to make the shir, he had to look at them. He had to measure the makabel.
Right.
That's the Indian of the Kav Midah that's already before the Tzimtzum. There's an Indian of a Midah before the Tzimtzum.
Right.
The Kav Midah after the Tzimtzum is really an Indian of a Kav Midah before the Tzimtzum. And that's in the Shiur of the Glif Glifu, you have to be Meshayer what kind of a Tzimtzum he's going to make.
Right.
Who is going to come to it, even though that's really only by the Kav Midah after the Tzimtzum. Here it's really above having anything to do with it. But still, the whole Indian of the Kav Midah after the Tzimtzum came from here. And this is the thing, Glif B'Tiri La. V'gam zehu anisha b'pchinas helen v'histalkus ksad. Even by this, Eres Mishuorem is also pretty much in a way of a helm and histalkus. Dahainu rak lefioivna nitzrach l'Hishtalshelut achar tzimtzum zeh. Means it's only according to what he had to give over to us.
Right.
But Maven. It's only according to the Makabel. So that's according to the teacher and the student. V'gam al pi oifen moshla beis anal d'chayis ha-nefesh v'guf shemishtan l'mas shruchni l'mas gashmi kanal gamkin en ze shinui klal. Sharek mosh yesh kishur v'chibur l'chayis ha-gashmi l'chayis ha-ruchni mima sheroim mitpailus ha-nefesh mikra chayis ha-guf v'im kol zeh lo yishtana b'etzim ha-ruchni et mechisron et pashas chayis ever gashmi. Now, even though you see that he's affected, yet really it is not affected at all. So you say, what do you mean? So why, if he's totally not affected, so why should we do all the mitzvahs? It says that the Eibishter gets a pleasure out of it.
Right.
It says, yeah, but it doesn't mean that that it actually makes any kind of shinui. Same like the soul, even though it gets a pleasure, but it doesn't change at all. Like you see that if ever Gashmi is gone, it's not gone in the Ruchni. Now, and by the way, this mashal here is where these people are making a very big mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That they think it's Ruchnius.
Right.
But it's not. It's a mashal. The whole thing is a mashal, including the Ruchnius. The Ruchnius is also a mashal. The Ruchnius and the Gashmius is a mashal, including the Ruchnius. Now, kach en shino b'pchinas era atzmus, v'lioisa meir gam achar tzimtzum, gam she'enu rak lefi erech hishtalshelut. Even though it's not really like the original soul, power of the soul that's lighting up later. So in the Nimshal also, that it's not really the same original light, but only according to the Hishtalshelut. But nonetheless, Harayesh ben Kesher b'chibur. Ve'alpi zeh b'timtzum ha'er b'chinas hakav, en ze shinui klal boi ra'at.
The imkol zeh.
Oh, okay. The imkol zeh. B'pchinas hakav, en ze shinui klal b'oi ra'atmus, alpi mashal zeh. Can, so that's the second mashal. Can alpi mashal gimel mikachat noah begeshem. El kamashal et chachmus mikachat maskal. Now, halakol is signal echad. It's all one thing. Kanal barichus, like we explained in chapter 12. V'dayla mevin. V'amnam b'pchinas Rishimo. So that's the Indian of the Tzimtzum. But however, as far as the Rishimu, Shavua Lamaila, Shazeo K'ma Kitsu, Shekolu K'bo Kol HaRichus, Inu Lamala, Yuva Mizeh, Shazeo Pinas Koyach HaKbola, Sheyesh Bo'ein Seif HaBilti Mugbol, Be'etzem. So upstairs, what is this thing of this Tzimtzum and Rishimu? And especially the Rishimu, that the Rishimu holds the whole Arichus. That's the thing that is the Koyach HaKbola in the Oren Seif. Sheyesh Bo'ein Seif HaBilti Mugbol Be'etzem, There's this power, the Haynu Lahavi Kole Ares Aratzna Bilti Gvul B'Pchinas HaGvul. He has the power to take this whole infinite light and squeeze it into nothing. That's the whole inyan of the Rishon. It includes the whole Atzmus or Insof in it. Kamosh Lakitz Shekol Lakol Ulu Kihu Yitbara Kol Yochel. He can do anything he wants. The Kal Bogam can Mikach Magbil Hagbil Likol Bushima Archaz Mikol Ora Atzmus Ulu. Oh, thank you. Hold on for a minute. Achina be'emet en ze dimien amis l'pchinas arshimu anisha b'chal reika mokampana and all. Yehu moirish nistalik misham hakol. Nothing is left. Losh nishar eza or not that there was any light left. The actual b'kitzur gvul except it's a tiny little light. Ela rak v'china rashimu ba'alma. Nothing is really left. Just a sort of like an impression. You know, sort of like an impression, but not the actual thing is gone. Im ken adimya amitiu miroishim v'tzion kavakot shreis ha'omnim shekel kol ha'richud ma'isa binyan. Like the blueprint. V'yezim izek ma'it l'zichon kanal. Even more is like the acrostics.
So what exactly does this mean over here?
What does it mean? What we talked about it before, what it means. That it really, it's not like...
What does it mean? That
the whole thing is gone. It's not like the soul and the body. Because in the body it's still the inyan of life. There is some life in the body from the soul. Same thing in the Mishnah. There's the seichel from the Gemara. It's still there. It's just a little bit. It's the same original inyan.
Okay, but this word, who moresh nistalek, is musav on what?
On the Rishimu.
And as an example for the Rishimu, he gave the matter of a kitzer.
Right.
The matter of a kitzer.
He says the kitzer is not a good. Is not a good example in the Rishimu because the meaning of Rishimu is Meire. The meaning of Rishimu is really Meire that the whole thing is gone.
Because I thought that's Musav on the Kitzer.
No, it says not the Kitzer. It's just the opposite. No, the Kitzer shows that something is left.
Right, that's why it didn't make sense to me.
No, the Rishimu, the inyan of Rishimu means that nothing is left.
Right.
Who is on the Rishimu?
Oh, okay, good. Now it makes sense.
Yeah. Kihu, the Rishimu, the inyan of the inyan Rishimu means that it's all gone. That's why that mashal, it's a good mashal to show us that it's all there.
Right. It's not a good mashal to show that it's all gone.
Okay, but it's a good mashal to show that it's all there.
That it's all there.
That it's mamish all there. In the mashal of the mashal that he gives you now, each one it's more and more gone.
Right. They get progressively
less. So
right.
in the blueprint, a building is gone, and you just have a bunch of lines. But then you say, but wait a minute, but you still have the actual shape of the building.
The mashal of the teacher, the kitzur of the teacher and the student is to show how in a tzimtzum, how the tzimtzum is not a real tzimtzum, how it's all there.
Not just on the tzimtzum, how in the final Rishimu...
Or even in the Rishimu, but how it's all there.
The Mishnah represents the Rishimu, that is mamish, the whole Gemara is still there. But the Tzimtzum is not a real Tzimtzum, and the whole Gemara is really there.
Right.
Over here, the first marshal is an intermediary.
Right.
What's the intermediary? That the blueprint. A blueprint means that the whole building is gone and you just have a bunch of lines. But it's still the whole building is there. And you can see how it's all there because Mamish the shape of the whole building.
Right.
So you say, yeah, but this is still an intermediary thing, and we have to now go even more to the other side. In other words, first he gives you a marshal from one side that shows that it's all there. Then he gives you a marshal that shows that it's all gone.
Right.
Right.
And he gets more and more that this is the intermediary. And that's what he said. And the Rebbe Rashab said that this really represents, in terms of the Hishtalshelut Ilamis, which are Masholim. First is Atzilus, then there's Bria, all the way down to Yetzirah.
Right.
You know, so in the first marshal, it's not really gone. It's really mamish. The Mishnah is the same thing like the Gemara. It's just a kitzer.
Right.
It's not really all gone.
Right.
And the second one, it's already all gone. That
a blueprint is not a house.
A blueprint is not a house.
But nonetheless, it's
the whole shape of the house. But not only that, even a person who doesn't know, not only the mashpia, but even like, let's say I'm not an architect or something like that, but if I would take a look at a blueprint, I could, if I would sit with it for an hour, I could figure out what it's supposed to be.
Right.
So it's not gone even by the Makabel, really.
Right.
Okay, but Yosem is then even more so in terms of that's all gone. Come on, and there is already, you don't even know what it is. Like every good boy, we can't figure out what it is just from knowing the letters. Canal, but nonetheless, there's still something left. Those are the first letters. It's only a remembrance of the Rav Tuvcha Atzmi. It's not the actual Rav Tuvcha, it's only a remembrance of it. Like the Oit Lazikroin. Okay, Gavna. V'yesa behel v'yistalkus u'kamash la'zoyrik Evan. Hulu kanal. V'kach Amar b'sefer aboy v'kmoi zarka hulu, like he threw a stone. She'epchin al-Rishimu nisha nivdo b'richuk mochem atzmi ha'oyer. Ulevnikra koach hanelam b'Rishimu zu, chinas helem oyer nivdol me'elam atzmus or the Einsof. Kmo koach nivdol hanelam b'zrikos Evan. It's like an actual thing that the actual original person is gone. That's what this marshal shows. That the stone is still going with the original power, but the power that threw it is gone.
Right.
It's like going by itself. And that's how the world is. It looks like the world is going by itself.
Right.
And you don't see, it's like a thrown stone that you don't even see who threw it anymore.
Right.
Not only that, the power of the hand is not just that you can't see it anymore. It's not continuing anymore. The actual hand is not throwing anymore.
Right.
The power of movement went back into the hand.
Right.
The Tez Keli Mechitzainis, the Malchus Dasiya, like the whole physical universe with all the stars and planets are still moving around and around from the original throwing, like the Big Bang thing.
Right.
But it wasn't like the Big Bang thing.
Right.
That, like when you throw something, if you trace it back, then you trace it all the way to the ground, you say, wow, it blew up from the ground. It didn't. It really started somewhere in the middle from where you threw it.
Right.
So the same thing. In other words, this throw happened 57, what is it?
63.
Yeah, 63. Not 64.
Well, now it's 64.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually it's 63 because we're just beginning the 64. Years ago. That's when it really started, in the middle.
Right.
And this, it came from the 9 outside kelim of Malchus of Asiya. The Nikozeh, Koyach HaNivdal, Chinas Malchus Shebemalchus. Abba Be'er Richuk Nivdal. Lok Ma Ksiva Be'etzba, or Koyach Yad HaPoel Atzmoi, B'Nifal, Shezeu, Gilui Etzem HaKoyach V'Kiruv, Shenikra Chinas Malchus. So what he's saying to you here is if you look up and you'll go outside and you'll see the moon, you're actually seeing the power of Malchus and Malchus of Asiya.
Right.
Not only that, you're actually seeing the power of Malchus and Malchus of Asiya when you're moving.
Right.
Because you got that from the sunlight and stuff like that. That's all from the Galgolim.
Right.
Not only that, you're feeling it pulling you down, the gravity and all that business.
Right.
That's all from the Malchus and Malchus of Asiya. Your mom is feeling the external power of the external kelim of Malchus and Malchus of Asiya. That's what's actually the Zrika is, even though it seems to be going on by itself.
Right.
Just like the stone. But really, it's the external kelim of Malchus and Malchus of Asiya. So this is the Koyach HaNivdal, Sheba Be'erech Richuk Nivdal, in a faraway way, and not like the actual hand that's moving it. But there you can see the hand. Shezeu Gilui Etzem HaKoyach V'Kiruv Shnikra Pchinas Malchus. Moshem Vor Mokmacher Barichus. And I'm going to have to stop over here because the production has started up already.
Okay, the tape is on.
Right, we just finished that parenthesis. Commotion Vor Mokmacher Barichus. ומשולם היית קרויב מזהו כמו הרמז שהשכל בהלם את תנועה גשמית שזהו נקרא בחינת הלבושה ותפיסה בדובר נבדל. But the seichel is caught in a movement, which is a totally different Indian than the seichel. Again, k'shekaisev seichel v'chochme b'tnuat ha'etzba. And that goes even farther, that when he actually writes it with a tnuas ha'etzba, that's connected to the etzba. Then the letter that comes out of it is basically a shape that was made by it's just a bunch of shapes on a paper. And that's ready, can be in a way of a zrika. Like this book is a zrika. Chulu kanal. כך למעלה ובחינת הרשימו ובחינת דובר נבדל בערך שבו מלובש בהל מקללות or asman schul v'dalam even. So he basically over here went over the mashalim of chapter 12. ואמנה מכל אלה יובן על כל פנים כללות אין הרשימו. So from all these mashalim, even though each one is a little bit more this way and one is a little bit more the other way, but when you put them all together, then you can understand at least the general inyan what the regime was all about. The gam shubah b'chinas salkus hakol, and everything is really, there's nothing left there. Well, nisha barak behelam godel b'china tachlis hakitzonius is what does it say there?
Kitzur.
Hakitzur. Tachlis hakitzur v'aremez chulu, o kekach nivdol chulu, aber mikol mokem מזה עצמו בא ונמשך כל פרט ההשתלשלות לקו, שנמשך מרשימו זו. So over here he says very clearly that the kav comes from the Rishimu. And later on he says the kav that comes from the or, and it's like in various places it says that the or is bokeat through the Rishimu. It doesn't mean that the actual or is bokeat. It means that really the or is included in the Rishimu and it's reconstituted. Like the Mishnah, like the Mishnah and the Gemara. The Gemara that we have today was bokeah through the Rishimu of the Mishnah. And it doesn't mean that actually that like a guy read the Mishnah and had a vision of one of the people from before the Mishnah who told him the whole Gemara. But it means that it was included in there.
Right.
And it was reconstituted means the original light of stuff that you couldn't see in the kids of the Gemara was actually reconstituted out of the Rishimu. B'shimu zu li'eisa kolol sakol behelem al kol panim. Since it includes everything, even though it's behelem, but nonetheless it's everything. He anotenet shiyuchal lavo akol b'isgalus al zeh pinas hakav ad sof asiyah. U'kamaymer kol hayitzur lo nikchad mimecha davka. That all the yitzur is not missing from you. This is part of the Rosh Hashanah prayer.
Right.
And the usual touch of it is that the knowledge of all things is you're not missing any knowledge of anything, but really he touches it kipshutai.
Right.
And really, this is really what it means.
Right.
That there's nothing missing in the Rishimu. And certainly before the Rishimu. Meaning, and he says here the Yitzur, the actual manufacturing of the thing, not the actual manufacturing, the actual thing itself. The Yitzur doesn't mean the Tzura. The Yitzur means the actual thing that was fashioned.
Right.
Like what we were saying before.
Product.
The product, right. Yeah, that's the Yitzur, the product. The actual product is actually not missing there.
Hold on a second, let me flip the tape.
Yeah, so it's like we said before that, like, what people think that it gets abstract, it doesn't mean like that. And it's not even like the nimshal, but by the nimshal we said that the rutzen for a sandwich is included in the rutzen for chesed. But in the nimshal, we said that because otherwise where did it come from?
Right.
In the nimshal, we have to say that the actual sandwich itself was included there. Because here's the sandwich in front of us, and you bite into it and say, wow, it's the actual sandwich. And where did it come from?
Right.
And you have to apply the same thing like you said over there. On one side, to say that it's actually there is ridiculous. On the other side, to say that it's not there is mamish kfira in the yichud.
Right.
Mimecha davka means in you. Shezeu hakol nase v'nimshach begilui, that everything came out in gilui. Moshe ala b'tzoyin ha'poshe ba'atzmus ha'or shalif na simtum. Moshe shir ba'atzmo chulu. Sharei b'machshava k'duma zu, the machshava k'duma is after the symptom. Shir ba'atzmo before the symptom. Utzoyv ve'umabit hakol b'skira achas. It's all, he sees the whole thing in one shot, everything. It's all included there. Dahainu, Mash Niskar, Behelem, Ubekitzur, Beremez, Bereshimuzu. That in the Machshava Kduma is the beginning of the reconstitution of what was already included in the Helem in the Reshimu. And was really already Meshuar even before that. And the Ashar of the Glif Glifu.
Right.
It's like the blueprint. שממנו דווקא ידעו לעשות כל הריחוס מעשה הביני לפרטי פרטיוס, מרואי של הספר. רק כדי שלא יתעלו ממנו טיימה ונימוקו בעצמוסי להריחוס העניין. It's just that really, what he's telling you here is that really the blueprint has a source in a previous blueprint that was in his head. And in order that he shouldn't have to rethink it every time, like, oh yeah, how did I plan to make this wall? So what does he do? Therefore, he makes a blueprint to remember his original plan. He doesn't have to look inside of himself anymore. But really, the blueprint originated before the blueprint. So over here, they say basically what the Eibusher does is he makes the blueprint, and in a way, it's not that you say why couldn't he just look inside of himself? He's already inside of himself. But over here, it's a little bit different because actually, it's almost like he just makes the blueprint, and the blueprint makes the world. You know. It's like almost like, the blueprint is a computerized blueprint. That like if you had a sort of a robot, a building robot, and all you had to do is put the blueprint into the robot, and then you can walk away and the robot will build the whole building. And it's sort of like that. In other words, like Adam Kodman is sort of like, he made a primal thing of a man, like, in other words, like these levels is not just like the levels, it's mamish like a being. And gave him over this thing, and now he can walk away. And that's the thing of a blueprint, by the way, that really the blueprint is actually, if you look a little bit closer at the marshal, the blueprint is not really for himself. The way it's done is that the blueprint is given over to a contractor. The blueprint is made, it's conceived by an architect, it's drawn by a draftsman, and then it's given over to a contractor. And the architect doesn't have to do nothing with a contractor. If he makes the blueprint properly, he doesn't have to, every 2 seconds, the contractor will call him up. It's all in the blueprint.
Right.
And basically, this union of a blueprint can be applied, these masholim can be applied to the whole Seder Hishtalshelut, like we're going to see later, the whole muscle of the blueprint, and the different people that are involved with it. There's 4 people involved with a blueprint. There's a person who's going to build the house, the architect who comes up with a concept of the house, the draftsman who makes the tzura of the house, and the contractor who does the asiyah of the house. And later on, this mashal is used over and over again. When we get into different levels. וכמו כן, עניין הציונים ללימוד עמוק שבעצמי, שזהו תועלת לידע מהם כל אורך עניין עמק עצמוסו. In other words, that if he wants to remember, instead of having to start thinking about the whole thing, he just thinks the tziyun and automatically remembers the whole thing. So yes, without veering away from it. V'kach pina d'Rishimu azois, in the same way this Rishimu, hakolelas v'remez v'kitzur, mikol ora asmus anelam. Anelam ba. What's the next thing? It's unclear over here.
Hu atzmo hamakor.
All right. Hu atzmo hamakor l'kol ha'amshoches the kabachut. This Rishimu itself is the makor to the whole hamshoch of the kabachut. B'pchinet makif ha'pnimi m'rosh l'seifei. That everything should be exactly like it was planned before the Tzimtzum. זהו מה שנאמר במקום אחר, שהנקודה יש בה הלם והתגלות, בייס הפוכם. הלם מכל מה שעליון ממנה בערך, it's a hiding away of everything that's above it. וגילוי הכל המקבלים נמצא ממנה דווקא. And everything that's going to come to the מקבלים will come דווקא out of this נקודה of the Rishimu. Which, by the way, the concept of Nakuda is used in various places. One is Nakuda of the Rishimu. The other word is Nakuda, like Nakuda Sira Parzuf, the Nakudas of Toihu. Then later on, when Chokhmah is called Nakuda, and in each place, even though the basic concept is the same, but it's a little bit different. This is not just like the Nakuda of Chokhmah. Over here, it's mamish, basically a total Nakuda of nothing. And it includes infinity in it.
Right.
Means like, for instance, like if I tell you a whole long explanation, then I tell you, do you get the point?
Right.
And the thing of getting the point is not really the whole explanation. Even though it includes the whole explanation, it really is more than the whole explanation, because if you really get the point, you can make 10 more explanations on it.
Right.
That are totally unlike the original explanation that was given to you. If you really get the point. Because the point includes more than an explanation, actually.
Right.
And this point that I just said, that's the point of Chokhmah, by the way.
Right, that's Chokhmah.
That's Chokhmah, which is a much lower point than the Rishimu, which is a much higher point. And yet, everything's included in it. Okay. So the whole thing will come out of it. והוא בחינת הקו שנמשך מן הרשימו שהוא כצור הסבב, שראש היוד. והולך ונמשך למטה, כמו שהוא במקום אחר באריכות. And there's one thing that's in iron base, and then there's the mimer. It's too bad I forgot which one it is. I think it's in Yudality or Zion, the mimer of the Rebbe that explains the two Shittas. He says there that the Mittler Rebbe is leaving out one letter of the name here. And he's having the Vav come straight out of the Yud.
Right.
And over there he explains that there's an Olam HaMalbish.
Right.
What's Olam HaMalbish? The Olam HaMalbish is the whole thing that could come out various kavim out of the point, really. It doesn't have to be Dr. this kavim. It could be really many other kavim. But really, over here he's saying it's almost like it's coming straight from the point to the vav, to the line. And basically the Rebbe said that that's, according to the Shita, and also since he's talking about a higher level, it's almost like there is no Olam HaMalbish. Because according to the Shita of the Rebbe Rashab, there's an actual Olam HaMalbish. in between.
Right.
And the kav comes out of the oil and the malbish.
Right.
The thing of the point is over here the Rishumu actually includes the oil and the malbish inside of it, and it doesn't really get manifested, but it's really there. In other words, what it is that many different kavim can come out of it, really, out of this Rishimu. It doesn't have to be only this kav. So, it's like a side issue over here. And that's like a vav, Shaar HaYichud, that the head of the vav is a yud. V'olach nimshach lamata is like a point with a line coming out of it. Marshal Lord Mokam Acher Bar Yichud v'kol zeh moving klalut inyan atzimtzum nokem pono leprira Rishimu v'akav sh'hu rak pinas agbola ba'asmus v'shiyum shachakol begilui v'zeu shenemar ki imcha mekor chayim bo'oicha ha'asmi nire oyer means oyer shel telda sh'hu pinas akav. But it doesn't really mean that the actual kav comes from the original ore, but it comes from the original ore which is hidden in the Rishimu.
Right.
K'moshe Yidbar Be'ez HaShem. Zehu Kol Adam. And this is the whole reason that a person is here. To think about this. That's the whole reason we're here. It makes me say davka yovel klal yichud amiti bitzashus nafshu b'chaye kol ha'chayim al-yenim shu asmos erin seif mamish. The tam and now v'dal, like he explained before, that by understanding that the whole thing down here is just nothing but a symptom of it, therefore it'll be connected davka to the etzem. Okay, and I'm going to have to stop here, even though it's kind of early.